Good morning, I'm Staff Sergeant Bruce Walker, BRUCE-WALKER, with the Calgary Police Service Sex Crimes Unit. The Calgary Police Service has charged a man in connection with a sexual assault that occurred 20 years ago in the Beltline area. At approximately 5:30 a.m. on Thursday, August 14th, 1997, a woman was walking along 8th Street Southwest when a man approached her somewhere between 10th Ave and 11th Ave. He pulled the woman into the alley, threatened her, and then sexually assaulted her. Following the assault, the man made the woman walk a few blocks through the alleyway before leaving her and fleeing. The crime remained unsolved until recently. In November of last year, a man in custody on another matter contacted the Innisfail RCMP to turn himself in for a sexual assault that occurred sometime in the 1990s. Our Sex Crimes Unit followed up on the new information from the RCMP and reviewed multiple unsolved cases from the period to find a match. DNA evidence led investigators to lay charges in the 1997 sexual assault. Charles Henry Desjardins, 54, of Bowden, is charged with sexual assault with a weapon, uttering threats, and kidnapping. He remains in custody. We'd like to thank the RCMP for their assistance with this investigation. Any questions?
After the RCMP, I guess, spoke to this man, was it difficult, I guess, going back and finding the case that he was speaking of?
Yes, we have three persons dedicated to looking at our cold case files, and based on information provided, would sort of navigate the investigation. With that information, we would then act on it, continue to review our case files, and through that investigation, we discovered that this was the case file.
And I guess that explains kind of the gap between, I guess, November and actually now laying the charges?
Yes, that's correct. And obviously with the increase, I guess, efficiencies in investigative techniques and DNA technology, we can say that with the time frame, that's why it took so long.
So what happens now? Do you, since he's come forward and to the Innisfail RCMP with this case, do you now look at every unsolved case in the mid-90s to try to find a connection? How does that work?
Yeah, like I said, we have three persons dedicated to reviewing multiple cold case files through investigations. If we do find linkages, then we sort of act on those investigative processes to see if there's any other linkages with other files.
Have you spoken to the victim since, and what was her reaction after all this time?
The investigator has obviously spoken with the victim. The victim is obviously a sense of comfort to know that this case has come to fruition for her. She has all the necessary supports in place for support, and is doing as can be expected.
Sorry, did you get into the fact of, have you spoken with the accused and why after all this time he's coming forward?
I don't know the exact details of why he come forward at this time. He's obviously cooperated with the investigation.
He's in for something else. No conversations of why he didn't come forward years earlier when he was charged with the other offenses?
No, there's no discussion about that.
I apologize I was late. I don't because it was asked or not, but I believe we wrote about him a few years ago, or at least someone with the same name who was accused of sexual assault, same name, sort of the same age, in 1995. Do you know if this is the same person, or is this person you have in custody? Does he have a history of sexual assault?
He is known to police, but I can't get into the criminal record or any background with regards to the individual. It's protected under privacy.
Is it unusual for someone to come forward after so long in this kind of case?
I don't want to say that it's a common thing. Certainly, with this particular case, this person has come forward, has cooperated with the investigation, and again, there's no public safety concern as he was in custody at the time.
Are police anticipating any more charges, considering he has been convicted on these similar charges before and now charged with these charges again? Is there an anticipation that he may be facing more as you guys move along with your investigation into cold cases?
I mean, as we review cases, there's nothing currently any evidence that there's any ongoing investigations with this particular individual. Certainly we encourage anybody who's a victim of sexual assault to come forward and report.
As an investigator, how satisfying is it to close the books on a case that not only is the victim obviously has been living this past 20 years, but as an investigator, how satisfying is it to close a case after this long being a cold case?
I mean, it's very satisfying that we can find closure for the victim with an offense of this nature. Again, with developments in technology, better technology for DNA, what have you, certainly supported this investigation. For that, I would say there's a great sense of well-being that we can do that with the victim.
If he hadn't admitted to that, would he have been caught just through that DNA process anyways?
Again, we're having 3 people dedicated to reviewing all the files. Certainly, we look at all past cases. We look at what DNA, what articles or evidence are there, and we're constantly reviewing files that are considered cold case from the 80s, the 90s, going into 2000.
Was this victim regularly in contact with police either over the last 20 years or at least since November when this man came forward and admitted that he had committed these crimes? Was she in contact with police, or was she only contacted after the charges were decided to be?
Yeah, she was contacted after from November with regards to saying that we were proceeding with the investigation. And we typically would close out the investigation and then re-engage with the victim.
Is that something? I'm sorry. Is that something you might look at going forward when you have a lot of these cases and you've got this unit that maybe every 6 months, once a year, you might contact the victims to say that, hey, it might be a cold case, but we're still working on it?
Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword when it comes with that, right? Because the last thing we want to do is re-victimize a victim from a cold case that was 20 years old. Having a successful conviction of a cold case, I mean, is a good thing. But we're very cognizant of the fact of saying, hey, we're still working on your file. And you don't want to create a sense of false hope. But again, we have 3 individuals that are highly dedicated to going through all the files. So again, it's a bit of a rock and a hard place to do that, right?
That team of 3 that you've been talking about this morning, I know police announced about a month and a half ago they were adopting the Philadelphia model to look into sexual assault cases, unfounded sexual assault cases, and the categorization of those cases. Is this investigation related to the adoption of that model at all, or was this an ongoing investigation prior to the adoption of that Philadelphia model?
Yeah, this is completely separate, and this investigation, again, started late last year.